Huh? What's this? It looks like a script for my next video, but that can't be right. I've not even finished editing my previous video. You know what? I'll give it a read anyway, and we can see what it's about. What in God's name is this? It's 12 pages long, and the initial thing isn't even words. It just says, make meta skit about making videos and making a meta joke in a meta video. That is what? Doesn't even make any sense. I gotta go talk to my writer. Hey, yeah, this script is bogus. It's over 12 pages long. Do you know how long it takes me to edit and record when something's this long? You're crazy, man. Oh, what's that? Oh, yeah. I write my own videos. Okay. This will be a ranking of cartoon and manga villains. More accurately, it'll be a tier list of them. Here are the rules. Rule number 1, 6 categories. S, fantastic, 10 out of 10. You must be a perfect villain to get an S ranking. So either I must have nothing bad to say about you, or the things that I do have to say about you that are bad are so heavily outweighed by your positives that you still deserve an S. A, great, 9 out of 10. To be a great villain, you must enhance the viewing of the TV show. You have to be one of the best parts of the TV show, and I have to enjoy it every time you come on screen. You must be thematically significant and well implemented in the context of the show. You're not quite an S. You might have like a few kinks to work out, but you're still great. B, good. This is a range of like 7 to 8. A good villain enhances the quality of the show. It is enjoyable to see a good villain, but they're also not quite at that level of the best part of the show, like a great or perfect villain. C, this is a serviceable villain, a 5 to 6 range. So you don't add anything real of substance to the show, but you also don't detract from it. I could see you getting a B if you were just a little bit better. D, this is a 3 to 4 range. You're lacking. This is pretty close to F, but if I make a few changes to you, I could see you being a serviceable or even good villain. You just have a few things you need to work on. And finally, F. This is a 1 to 2 range. This is just a bad villain. I can't salvage it unless I do a massive overhaul through its character and plot. Rule number 2. I will not be including minor villains. A minor villain is any villain that I've forgotten, because that means they weren't important. So a villain I remember, even if he only appears for 0.5 of a second, is a major villain. 3, I will be basing these on a variety of factors such as lore, character design, character development, etc. 5, I will be ranking villains who had a redemption arc. However, I will be weighing the time that they were considered a villain more than when they were considered a hero. 6, I will be ranking villains whose source material I have finished reading but have not seen. And 7, I will include villains whose source material I haven't finished if I feel like I can make an accurate assessment of them. I will let you know when this happens. Okay, starting it off, Chicolisk from Amphibia. Despite only appearing in 1 episode, the Chicolisk's hilarious subtitled screeches earn him a spot in B tier. Also, his full title of Chicolisk the Stormbearer, is just awesome. So Chicolisk goes in B tier. Ozai. If we're purely based on the show, Ozai would be an F tier villain at best. However, because I made the stipulation that we would take in outside sources, he escapes his fate. In the Avatar comics, Ozai is one of the most sinister characters I've ever seen. He goes from a man in the chair to a masterful and egoistic manipulator who will do anything for power. He is horrifically abusive to Zuko's mother. It is not until the Smoke and Shadow series that she finally stands up to him in a great moment. So Ozai goes in B tier. Azula. Azula would be a fun villain if they hadn't tried to make her a sympathetic villain. Her descent into madness at the end of the series feels rushed, and unhinged Azula is much less fun than normal Azula. She was better in the comics, and her strong start keeps her out of F tier. A good evil villain is sometimes all you really ever need. Needlessly trying to make characters sympathetic will be one of many negative trends that sadly is a trend, so it will appear again, and again, and again. After revisiting this part of my script after 12 plus pages, I feel hollow inside with how many times I'm going to have to point out a trashy sympathetic character. Azula ends up in D tier. Kikimora. Kiki is an unfun, nasal villain who lacks any real charm. The only positive trait she has is a decent look at the beginning of the show. She rides a dragon made of hands, so that's cool. But between Hunter and Belos, this is less of a drop in quality and more of a meteoric plunge in quality. Kikimora is our first villain in F tier. Bill Cipher. Bill Cipher is one of the funniest, best designed, and most intimidating of any animated villain. The only things that keep him out of S tier are that he doesn't get enough screen time. He lacks a great motivation, and he seems to have an inconsistent power set. Honestly, his greatest sin is simply not showing up in the series as much as I would have liked. That and the shtick of random disturbing imagery being funny loses its shine pretty quickly, so Bill Cipher is going in B tier. Ice King. I love Ice King, however, he is not a great villain. Despite him not being a great villain, when he is a villain, he has a nice Saturday morning cartoon villain vibe. And the more I think about it, the more I'm coming to appreciate his campy nature. He also is one of the most tragic villains, and I adore Simon. But Ice King himself is sort of a generic villain for the first few seasons, so Ice King sadly ends in B tier. Evil Samurai Jack from Season 5 of Samurai Jack. I love Evil Samurai Jack. His design is wonderfully uncanny. It starts out fairly close to Samurai Jack, but as the season goes on, it takes on more monstrous features. Sharp teeth, slit pupils, gangly, misproportioned limbs, and a strange way of moving. I also love what he represents, that being Jack's regret and self-doubt, and the anger that has kept him alive, and his desire to cease being stuck in this God-forsaken future. His conversation in the cave is one of my favorite scenes ever in anything, period. Samurai Jack is the first villain that we are putting in S tier. The Omen. I'm sorry, I'm not going to have the tier list bit for this guy. If I did, it'd be putting him in C, because I mixed up and accidentally grouped him with the Ghost Samurai, who aren't really even villains. The Omen is a very cool and intimidating force throughout the entirety of Season 5. Not quite on the level with Evil Samurai Jack, but I would still probably put him in A tier. Magic Man. Magic Man is a solid villain who, like most Adventure Time villains and characters, is a tragic one. I really appreciate that the lesson taught in the first episode he is in is that some people are just jerks, a very unique lesson for an animated cartoon. His eventual transformation to a benevolent ruler of Mars is really nice, and the fact that he calls himself Normal Man after he loses magic is great. Magic Man goes in B tier. Golb. The antithesis of Glob. Golb is the god of discord, and probably the most powerful character on this list. Actually, he's probably the most powerful character in any cartoon. He has a perfect design, and unlike Gumball, he was set up at a much earlier point in the story. His minions that he creates out of the candy people are both terrifying and awesome. What keeps him out of S tier is his appearance after he merges with Betty. That said, he's still a great character and deserves a spot in A tier. Gumball. The only thing holding Gumball out of lower tier is the fact that Gumball was one of the few irredeemable characters in Adventure Time, and I love me a good pure evil villain. Gumball ends up in C. Captain Grime. Grime is a well-rounded villain. He has a great redemption arc. He shares some great chemistry with other characters. He manages to be a key character in some of the saddest scenes of Amphibia. When he gets his arm cut off, you get to see how much Sasha has helped him to be a better person. This is one of the show's best scenes. That said, as a villain, he's a bit underwhelming, especially when compared to the actual villains of the series. But he's still good, so he gets a B tier. Gideon Gleeful. Every time I watch Gravity Falls, I like Gideon a little bit more. After a few more watches, he will probably be an A tier. That said, right now he ends up in B. General Zhao. I love General Zhao. He is by far the best villain in Avatar. I like him so much because he actually impacts the main character. He's also the best designed villain in Avatar. He is a ruthless and conniving jerk, and I love him for that. General Zhao gets a spot in A tier. Yellow Diamond. Yellow is the least developed of the diamonds. She's neither good nor bad. I really have nothing to say about her. Not good, just disappointing. D tier, I guess. Jasper. In a way, Adventure Time and Steven Universe are similar in that to each other in their approach to character development. The heroes aren't always heroic, and the villains are usually redeemed. Jasper is similar to Gumball in the sense that they are both set in their ways and refuse to become better people. They are also similar in that they suck. Jasper gets F tier. Blue Diamond. Blue Diamond is better developed than Yellow, but is still bland. Her ability is making people cry. Not making people despair, not even making them sad. Literally just making them cry. Well, I guess this would be helpful in a duel. Having all the power of a cut onion in the palm of your hand isn't enough to claw out of just being a serviceable villain. That and her realization that abusing her sister was abusing her sister. Yeah, she should have realized that sooner. Oh, and her voice, while novel at first, does get pretty old pretty fast. Blue Diamond gets a spot in C tier. Andreas. He was destined for S tier and is so far above anyone on this list. I was initially planning to have him be the only character in S tier, however that felt disappointing. So he will now be placed in S+ tier. I will not be discussing his actual character, as I will probably make a deep dive into his character. Suffice it to say that he is my favorite villain in all of fiction. I unironically wrote an entire essay in AP English on him and Amphibia as a whole. Andreas gets an S+. Wrath/Fury King Bradley. Bradley is such a cool character. His reveal is fantastic, and the fight with him and Greed rivals some of those in fights in Samurai Jack. His cool composure and interesting backstory make him a compelling villain. Furthermore, his final scene where he demonstrates his free will and pride in making his own choices is beautiful. He doesn't feel evil, just driven. Bradley deserves an S rating for striking the ideal balance between cool, evil, and tragic. He surpasses creator Dwarf in the Flask. This trend of underlings being better in comparison to their masters is one that we have already seen and sadly will see again. Wrath gets an S tier. Envy. Envy is probably my favorite sin besides Wrath. Sadly, that isn't actually saying much. He's by far the most evil of the sins, yet manages to be somewhat sympathetic. The way he tries to play off of other people's anger is a great fit. His powers also work well with the sin that he is named after. The thing I love most about Envy is the tragedy of his character. I could tell the reason why he was the way he was as soon as his true worm form was revealed. Watching him get absolutely trashed by Mustang was very cathartic. However, his monstrous design is trash. Envy gets a B tier. Twice. This one hurt. Twice was the only likable and or somewhat redeemable villain in the League of Villains. He was a good character at heart, but fell in with the wrong crowd. His character growth of going from a timid side character to becoming a self-confident main character is great. The feeling of guilt of being the cause of his friends getting hurt is soul-crushing. However, he is kept out of S tier because I want to see more of him. Twice gets an A. Gyetaro. He is menacing and has a fantastic entrance. The way he torments Tanjiro is fantastic. The fact that he doesn't kill Tanjiro right away makes him so much scarier. He has a sadistic sense of pity for the protagonist. Despite all of this, he is inherently tragic. The way he loves his sister is heartbreaking. His motivation of hating the world because it only cares about beautiful people and he is ugly is pretty good. Gyetaro gets a B. Darcy/King Aldrich/The Core. The core really only gets this high because of the absolutely terrifying transformation of Marcy into Darcy. However, that would probably put him into A or even S tier. However, besides this and a few other cool scenes, he isn't that memorable or cool. He has an okay design. I love his voice. It takes on the main voice of whoever would be most effective into manipulating who it is talking to. So his voice is Aldrich when he's talking to Andreas, and Marcy when he's talking to Sasha. Also, he's also the only design on this list where adding eyes actually enhances the design and makes it more uncanny. The core gets a spot in B tier. Aku. Aku is a fun, well-rounded villain who works well as the villain of the week for the first 4 seasons. In the 5th season, he shines as a force that has broken the samurai. I like Aku. Good design and great voice acting. A tier. White Diamond. White Diamond is by far the most intimidating of the diamonds. That doesn't actually mean much, though. She has a good design and her powers fit well with her color because white is all colors combined. Her perfectionist personality is rather intimidating. Also, goddamn, the way she ripped the gem out of Steven is hardcore. B. Sasha. Sasha has a fantastic arc. I love the dual-wielding fighting style she has. I don't have a lot to say about Sasha besides she is a great character and a good villain. B. Bellows. By far the most intimidating villain Disney has ever put into one of its shows. Bellows is my favorite part of the Owl House. He is one of the best designed characters on this list. However, my favorite part about him is how irredeemable he is. He is egotistical, only wanting to be the hero of his own story. That, combined with the way he is both a smart and incredibly powerful character, makes Bellows one of the best villains on this list. Bellows is written like a traditional villain. He commits atrocities like genocide and killing his own brother over and over again. He feels like Judge Claude Frollo, if Frollo was also a Wendigo that used magic. He is much more powerful than the main character, but has a single exploitable weakness, that being his pride. I was going to keep him from S tier because his final design is not my favorite, but I can't bring myself to do that to him when he's this good. Also, his voice does some very similar stuff to the core's, to the point where I thought they were voiced by the same actor, and I've already established that I love the core's voice. It really hurts that Bellows is the only primary antagonist to make it into S tier, and that fact only solidifies his ranking. Okay, actually, there is one more villain who makes it into S tier who's the primary antagonist. We'll get to him much, much later. Lust. Lust is a pushover. She is built up as some powerful character only to get turned into an overcooked marshmallow at the hands of Mustang. D. Gluttony. I like Gluttony. He has a good design. B. Zareth. He just doesn't work as an intimidating villain or as a sympathetic villain. He comes off more like an annoying emo kid who should probably seek professional help. He has some cool moments as a ghost/vision, I guess, but that's about it. D. Agnologia. The highlight of Fairy Tale. Agnologia is an amazing villain. He makes an otherwise just okay show worth watching. Intimidating as a dragon and as a human, his backstory is justifiably chilling. He is also the only source of kills in the entire show. I am so glad the writers of this show realized that he had to be the main antagonist. He is great final boss material. A. Pride. Pride is meh, and he turns into a baby. That line is sadly indicative of things to come. F tier. The Deep Sea King. One of the only villains with a name I can remember from One Punch Man. He obliterates Moomin Rider. His design is horrible, and for that horrible design, he deserves a spot in A tier. The Collector. I'm just glad they didn't try to have him replace Bellows. The omnipotent child trope gets old after you see it once. Cough, cough, Magus, Cubic, Mob, 11. God damn, this trope gets used a lot. He fails to be an interesting character, and he probably shouldn't have even been in this show. He takes time away from characters I actually care about, and his naivety gets real old real fast. He just is straight up unenjoyable. F tier. Raya. Raya is not a great character, but he also isn't a bad one. He has a cool design and a decent motive. He's a perfectly middle-of-the-road villain. C. Fauna. Fauna is an okay villain who works well within the story. C. Veto. By far the best elf villain in Black Clover, Veto is not only compelling, but he also has a very threatening aura. He is able to beat all the Black Bulls, something that the other members of the Third Eye don't do, or at least not as one-sidedly, and is only taken down after Yami surpasses his limits. He's a great character. I like him. A. Zagreed. Zagreed is a fantastic villain. He is scary, powerful, and one of the best voice actors on this entire list. Because he is the first devil we see in Black Clover, he holds an even dearer place in my heart. None of the devil-possessed come close to the majesty of Zagreed. A. Boros, Dominator of the Universe. While I hated his design at first, his final form is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I love that the motive is the exact same as Saitama's, and the animation during his fight goes hard. Boros gets an S tier. Every isekai villain, with a few exceptions, gets a C tier. I straight up can't even remember any isekai villain except like 2 or 3. These villains are mainly just to be pounded into the dirt by the MC. So, yeah. Death Gun. Remember how I said there were a few isekai villains I remember? Well, this is one of them. Death Gun is one of the most brain-dead ideas anyone has ever had. But if you couldn't figure that out from the name alone, I would call your sanity into question. Yeah, he's an F-tier character. I will not lie, I did consider making him S-tier purely for the meme. For those who don't know, I will try to explain this insane character, but no, I will just sound like I'm on drugs. Firstly, virtual games in this world paralyze their user and make them unable to experience outside stimuli, which is entirely ridiculous. This is stupid, and we haven't even gotten to Death Gun's Lex Luthor from Batman vs. Superman level plan. Here goes. Death Gun is 2 people who murder pro gamers who live alone. One of them is in the game and shoots the character's avatar at the exact moment as the partner injects poison, which they got from breaking into the hospital where their father works at, into the body of the individual whose house they've broken into. There's somehow more to this story, but I can feel my brain leaking out of my ears. This dude's F tier. Sloth. Sloth is a perfectly fine character. The fact that he moves quickly so he can get back to being lazy is a fresh and interesting take. C. Shao Tucker. A perfectly good day was ruined by this man. A and F combo tier. Homunculus / father / dwarf in the flask. Save for his eyeball-covered form, this character has one of the best designs. I love the mystique built up around the character. Also, his death is very cathartic. He's equally menacing and sympathetic. The decision to allow an episode dedicated to his connection with Full Metal's father before the main fight, it's great. A tier. Muzan from Demon Slayer. Demon Slayer is a very good anime. It is deeply tragic and beautiful. That said, its villains are, like, all just awful. Muzan looks like an angry Michael Jackson for the majority of the show, and when he does transform, he becomes a Plaga from Resident Evil 4, and then transforms into a baby. God damn it. Here it is again. He feels like he is trying and failing to be edgy, and honestly feels like a worse than just a straight up bad villain because he has so much potential but nothing is ever done with him. He's like All For One if you got him from a bargain bin at Walmart. And then they ruined All For One and then he just became All For One. So, F tier. Patri. He's kind of confusing, but he works as a good antagonist. He sets up Zagreed very nicely. So, C tier. Okay, I'm gonna probably have to blur this dude's face when I'm showing the tier list because, yeah. Wizard King Julius, good lord, the rug pull when it was revealed that the Wizard King was the final villain of Black Clover was so cool. The unique double red herring was amazing. He genuinely could have turned into Cthulhu and he still would have been given an A for his twist. Like, Jesus Christ, A. X/Slur. He is an okay villain. He has a tragic backstory, but he feels like he lacks a certain impetus. He never quite feels like a threat. I was also genuinely confused when he was referred to as Slur. What type of name is Slur? What? The author realized that Takamura was the best character, so they just made the main villain Takamura, but he isn't and will never be. I'm giving this dude a C tier. I don't know what to say. Old Man Takamura. When I was reading Sakamoto Days, I was reading it before the anime came out because I'm a trailblazer. I genuinely burst into manic laughter when this dude spoke. I've never had so much fun reading antagonist panels. The amount of pure joy this character gave me is incomprehensible. Watching him cut off, then reattach his arm was metal as God. He feels like an anime berserker rage was given a body. The guise of crazy old man who only mumbles, who is really skilled, is fun, but for the same character to speak and reveal his sanity is even better. That said, he goes out like a wimp, and he's not really a villain, so I can't really give him S tier, but I can still give him A. Tanpopo. I cannot fully express my sheer disappointment in the fact that the Yozakura series' first major bad guys went out like such wimps. Furthermore, they tried to make all of them sympathetic. I don't want my cartoonishly evil corporation to be sympathetic. I want them to be cartoonishly evil. Okay, also the science here is so laughably bad, I can't not mention it. Increasing cell division and the threshold for mitosis would not allow for an enhanced body function and pyrokinesis. It would give you cancer. Also, if you need someone's blood, you would want to take someone's bones, not their heart. The heart doesn't produce blood, and I would have expected that a pharmaceutical company should know this. Or, I don't know, use stem cells. My disappointment is immense, and my day is ruined. Tanpopo gets a D. Kawashita. He runs Tanpopo, and you know how I feel about them. Also, he somehow has hair that has more volume than his head and isn't an afro. C. Okay, I'm gonna have to blur these next two as well because people will get pissed if I start spoiling stuff from Invincible. So yeah, here's your warning. These next two are from Invincible. I'll give you like a little, I don't know, timestamp or something. After having finished reading Invincible, I found myself enjoying that the final villain wasn't the leader of the Viltrumites. Rather, it was Robot. I think this was an interesting choice. He is a compelling villain who, while not outright evil, is a serious threat and a good moral foil to Mark. So Robot gets a B. Thrag. Yeah, I'm only putting him here because, Jesus Christ, the fight between Thrag and Mark inside the sun goes so hard it can actually be used to shatter diamonds. This dude felt a bit like Doctor Doom during Secret War, massively overpowered, and God, is it enjoyable to be strung along for the ride. He also has a pretty good motivation. He doesn't need to have a good motivation, but he does. He gets a thumbs up from me for that. Yep, Thrag gets an A tier. The Lich. The Lich looks cool, and it is a serviceable villain. No other notes. Actually, the final true episode of Adventure Time where Finn and Jake both die, I know, if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. It's on Amazon. Or is it on HBO? I don't know. It's really crazy. And Fight the Lich in the Underworld is the best episode of the entire show. Adventure Time has never shied away from difficult topics. And the Lich, I think, represents that philosophy well, being something that you would not find in many other types of animated shows. I was going to give him a B, but after thinking about it, I think he deserves an A. Yeah, Lich gets an A tier. Clayman. For a series that was overall pretty good, Clayman falls short. The only reason I remember his name is because I've watched this show like 4 times. D. All for One. Wow, what a cool design. What a cool theme song. What an unclear motivation and inconsistent set of powers. He was a good villain. For a series that usually over-explains its villains, this one is surprisingly underwritten. Then they try to course correct and give him a weird backstory that entirely demystifies him, but in an unsatisfying way. That, and say it with me, he turns into a baby. The words, "they turned into a baby," should never start to feel cheap and boring, yet here we are. All for One gets an F tier because, yeah, you can't stop me. The Daughters of Aku. While I don't personally care for them, they have a sick design and lead to one of my favorite episodes in any TV show ever, so B tier, I guess. M. Night Shyamalan from Korra's first season. An incredibly powerful character that also makes interesting points and is in clear ideological opposition to the main character. They also have an incredible design, and they're being built up for some big review. Wow, what a cool and unique villain. What's that? It turns out this was just some random dude who had no interesting motivation or even the power he claimed he had. Wow, what a disappointment. This character had so much potential, but they squandered it. This is presumably why his mask is used to represent M. Night Shyamalan, a man known for bad twists, in Nostalgia Critic episodes. I will not look up his real name. I have standards. However, he gets to go into S tier because his initial build-up is so good. But what a twist. S tier stands for Shyamalan tier, for villains with bad twists, so go to F tier. Yeah. Zahir. What? An intimidating villain who is ideologically in opposition to the main character, and one who has valid points to bring up? Where have I seen this before? Oh yeah, M. Night from season 1. Luckily, unlike M. Night, Zahir is never ruined by a lame twist. In fact, he ages like a fine wine, only getting more and more enjoyable as the series progresses. One of my favorite scenes is when he realizes that his actions failed to accomplish his goal and only made things worse, and works with the main character in an effort to make them better. A villain who has consistent motivation is very nice. And in the words of Todd Howard, he just works. Zahir gets an S. The Angry Kite. I can't be bothered to look up this guy's name. He has a cool design, I guess, and he's consistent-ish motivation, so D. I don't know what he wants from me. Can't even remember his name. He's literally just Rhombus, the character. I hate geometry. Yahweh. 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 Jesus Christ. I think it's Yahweh. I don't know. He has a really cool design. I sure hope they don't ruin that. Then they proceeded to give him a number of eyes equal to a Resident Evil boss. Then he dies like a wimp. With a power literally called the Almighty, I want him to be able to withstand more than one arrow, okay? D. Actually, on second thought, he goes an A. His design is so bad it genuinely made me burst out laughing after I saw it. And that's worth something. Dobby. He works, I guess. I don't think he is actually as hard-hitting thematically as the author thinks he is. He definitely has his moments, so I can't very well say he's bad. That said, I feel like he could have been a lot more had his fight been against Endeavor. Having his fight against Shoto removes a lot of potential interesting material. That said, he still does get a moment with his family, and I can't say the dual flash fire fight is bad, so C, I guess. Garo from One Punch Man. Damn, this fight slaps so hard. However, he lacks any real substance besides spectacle, which, while important, doesn't truly make a perfect villain. Also, he looks really ridiculous when he has Saitama's face in his cosmic fear mode. When it's just galaxies that make up eyes, that is much more creepy. I mean, I'll still give him an A. Quivira. Yeah, that's a street name that I live by. A good villain who feels like they were trying to recapture the magic of Zahir. That said, an imitation of a perfect villain is still pretty good. And she gives an excuse to revisit Zahir in my favorite moment of the series. So B, I guess. Himaki Toga. I don't know what the author was cooking with this character, but they clearly shouldn't have been in the kitchen. That's all I'm saying. She was clearly meant to be a sympathetic character, but she's also a goddamn mass murderer. This extreme cognitive dissonance of her wanting to be loved while murking people leads to an extremely unsatisfying villain where it feels like the show is trying to gaslight you into feeling bad for someone. Jesus Christ, the villains from MHA suck. What's this? Skinner? An MHA villain that doesn't feel like a cheap grab at making you feel bad? A character with good motivations, clear goals, and a point that I can actually understand? What? Skinner surpasses the man he looks up to and becomes a highlight in a show that can't write a good villain while being held at gunpoint. Also, his sword is literally just the grafted blade greatsword from Elden Ring. I looked this up to make sure I wasn't crazy, and sure enough, there was a thread on Reddit about it. That, and I really like his motivation and think that his bond with Shigaraki. It took around 10 seconds for me to remember Shigaraki's name, and he's one of the main villains of the show. Anyway, their bond over role-playing games is really good. Skinner just seems like a bro who believes in what he preaches, and yeah, that's cool. Skinner gets a spot in A tier. Aizen. Aizen should have won. His power was literally busted as hell, and he lost. That in his final form is a downgraded Innocent Zero looking ass. C. Speaking of Innocent Zero, here's Innocent Zero. A cool looking dude with cool powers and a cool final form, who does cool things for a cool motivation. He's like Voldemort, but cooler, and with hair, and turns into something from Kaiju number 8. Also, his wand releases are really cool. Innocent Zero gets a B. Stain. Stain falls short of his disciple Skinner, but is by no means a bad villain. His backstory gets expanded on in Vigilantes, and this gives him some depth. B tier, I guess. Dante. This is the most memorable of the Zagrata siblings. I probably butchered that name, and I'm sorry. Dante is the perfect blend of pride, fury, and good design. His fight with Jack and with Magna are both standouts for a series that is pretty much just cool-ass fights. There's a comma there. Okay? Okay, Dante gets an A. We're moving on. I said we're moving on! The other Zagrata siblings. I can't be bothered to look up their names, but they did look cool, so that counts for something. The bone one looks cooler than the curse one, I guess. But all Zagrata siblings, Dante included, and Julius excluded, are all just setups for Lucifero. So they can't really get any higher than D. I mean, Dante did, but the others can't. Lilith and the other one, cool designs, B. Lucifero. The king of the devils needs no great introduction. He's an absolute powerhouse of spectacle, and he delivers that in spades. Pun entirely intended. From his transformation from a worm to his devil form, to the way he emerges from an orb of darkness, and his final, almost angelic form, Lucifero's transformations deliver on the promise of spectacle. His fight is also one of the best in the entire series. I really wish Black Clover would be brought back to being animated so that I could see this in animation, because I love it. Lucifero gets an A. Arlong. The first One Piece villain I actually thought was worth a damn. Also, a cool design. It just really makes me wonder what happens if Fishman eats a devil fruit, because they can breathe underwater, which seems like it would negate the consequences of eating a devil. Am I thinking too much? I'm thinking too hard about this. Arlong gets a B. Crocodile. The second One Piece villain worth a damn. Good build up with a good payoff. He was part of my favorite arc. And he comes back in an interesting way. Crocodile gets a B tier. Buggy. Buggy the Clown is the prototype for Monsoon from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Also, I understand why they named him Buggy, because it can mean crazy, I guess, but I refuse to believe that they couldn't come up with a better, more interesting name for a pirate clown. Like, I don't know, man. The Jester of the Sea or something. Actually, the name was Ass. Maybe they couldn't come up with a better name. Write your best pirate clown name in the comments, I guess. God, I'm a YouTube shill. Buggy gets an F tier. God King Eneru. The final One Piece villain whose name I actually remember. All the rest are just like, I don't know, Commodore Perry and stuff. The sad thing is that I almost watched like 200 episodes and more of this show after this arc, and I couldn't tell you a name of a singular villain. I mean, Blackbeard, but I'm not going to rank him because I've not actually seen him, because I stopped after episode 500. An absolute murderous and deluded megalomaniac, Eneru stands atop the competition on a pile of corpses. While other villains in One Piece want money or fame, he wants to be a literal god. I can respect that. Apotheosis is a pretty chill goal. Also, design-wise, he is my favorite One Piece villain. Ulquiorra. I guessed so hard on the spelling in my script, so yeah. But I'm not looking up how to actually spell it. The only villain in Bleach whose name I can remember besides Aizen Yawak. I'm done trying to pronounce his name. I can't tell if this is a testament to how well written and designed Ulquiorra is, or if all the other villains just sucked. I'm leaning towards the former. So he lands in B with a cool design and a cool fight. The Evangelist's followers. Cool powers and cool designs. That said, the fact that I can only remember like 5 distinct individuals from this group, despite being something I read much later than Fairy Tail or even Black Clover, means that most of them weren't that good. So, C. They work, but they're not good. Dragon. That said, Dragon is one of the coolest characters in manga or anime. His design is perfect. His rivalry with Arthur is perfect. I can't even be bothered to look up what his power set was. All I know is that it culminated with a fight on the goddamn moon. Jesus Christ, I love Fire Force. But moreover, I love this fight on the moon. Enough for it to give Dragon a perfect score. Dragon goes in S tier. What do you want from me? I don't know. The female Colossal and Armor Titans, at least the initial ones, because I know that they get eaten and repurposed and reuse, reduce, and recycle. I liked them, and the plot of Attack on Titan hadn't devolved into Titans with no ankles attempting to murder everyone as the main characters fought an evil sea cucumber that came out of a giant's neck. The initial Titans were cool, and I liked them, but I could never really get invested in them. Not like other villains. See? The Beast Titan. The only character from Attack on Titan who I found any form of consistent enjoyment in. A cool design, a very mysterious personality at the start, and an amazing eventual transformation. The Beast Titan is how you should write a tragic villain. He's not overtly evil, so it doesn't feel like I'm being manipulated when he turns out to be tragic. Design, when he doesn't have red eyes, is cool and intimidating. But with red eyes, he kind of looks like a bad Photoshop effect was added in post. So, A tier, I guess. Joseph. He's okay. Honestly, Ainsworth is the more intimidating presence throughout most of the show. Also, chalk up yet another point for unsatisfying sympathetic character. Joseph gets a C. Eren Yeager. Why? Just why? That's not sarcasm. That is a genuine question. I feel like if I was smarter, then I might have understood the show's time skip. But it was so confusing. I felt like I was trying to learn quantum physics in Braille. I actually just looked up why Eren became evil because I genuinely didn't understand. And understanding didn't make me feel better. Even if I don't understand the lore, having lore that needs me to delve into quantum mechanics is just bad. Eren Yeager gets a D. Ainz Ul Goon. I don't think I can properly articulate my absolute loathing for this singular character. I don't care if he is the protagonist. He has zero redeemable qualities and kills characters I like, so he is a villain. Overlord as a show reaches a level of unenjoyment I've only ever experienced from 3 other pieces of media, that being The Road, My Side of the Mountain, and House of the Devil. And Ainz is the king of this dumpster fire. He is by far the worst part of this show. He's incredibly powerful, but fears angering people who are not only weaker than him, but also literally programmed to love him. This results in a character with as much agency as a lobotomized fern. His design is so atrocious that it makes JJK character designs feel good and creative. I don't even want to talk about him anymore. He gets his own tier. I looked up the most hated things and picked the one I like, or I guess disliked the most. So Ainz goes into ads that redirect you even after pressing the close ad window tier. God, I hate him so much. Anyone else from Overlord? They're not Ainz. Still pretty insufferable, however. There is an in-universe explanation for why they are like that. And I like one of them. Also, one creative design, so F tier. They're still trash. It's like being stuck in nuclear waste. If I find a diamond in nuclear waste, it's still nuclear waste. God damn it. I'm losing my mind, man. Villains from Helk. One of my favorite manga, but its villains range from forgettable to forgettable, but not enough for me to forget that I enjoyed reading them, or reading the manga with them in it. 100% good, but not really stand out. I'm grouping them together because they're all of similar quality, and the past few entries have left me feeling hollow inside. B. Turbo Granny. She has a cool design and a very fun personality. Her personality is actually what makes her land a spot on this list. I don't really have a lot to say about her. I just like her, so B. Claw. The organization Claw from Mob Psycho 100 is 100% a good time. They act as a good antagonistic force for Mob and the crew to face. They have cool designs and distinct personalities. They don't feel like copy and pastes. They also have a funny redemption arc. They all have so much creativity fueled into them that I can't dislike them. So they also end up in B. And B and the middle tiers are really getting filled out. Dimple. He is the worst character from Mob Psycho. Still better than the entirety of Overlord, though. Because being the worst part of something that's really good still leaves you better than something that's really bad. Dimple starts out as a villain before transitioning into a conniving trickster before becoming an actual hero. He feels a lot like Loki from the MCU, and I like him quite a bit. He simply doesn't spend enough time as an actual villain for him to get any higher. He's a fun gag character. C. Claw Boss. He has a name, I just really don't feel like learning how to pronounce it. He is a perfect culmination of the first big arc of Mob Psycho. With the power to absorb and give psychic powers, he feels like All For One, except he doesn't suck. In fact, he shares a very similar character model when compared to Andreas. I don't mean literal character model. One's a 20-foot tall newt, the other's a pasty white guy who's like 6 feet tall. And then turns into a dude with a jack-o'-lantern while somehow having skin that's a business suit. I don't know, man. It was a weird show. Anyway, back to why he's like Andreas. He is essentially a reflection of the main character. He is also an actually well-done, sympathetic villain. The reason why he is evil is that he shut himself off after the relationship is that he shut himself off from relationships after losing his wife. He really is exactly like Mob. They even have the same psychic ability. The only difference is that Mob had help from people like Reagan to aid in his formation as a person, whereas the Claw Boss had none and ended up being evil. Okay, I just looked it up. I totally thought he died, but apparently he was only arrested and eventually reappeared in the comics. But I haven't read that far, so he is where he is. I'm technically breaking my own rules, but the fight between him and Mob is so good that it allows me to break my own rules. Claw Boss gets an A tier. Number 6. He is a perfectly good villain, and like many of the good villains on this list, he is a perfect foil to the main character. He's also a decently tragic character. Are you starting to see a pattern yet? I like characters who are reflections of the main character. Maybe I'm biased because I love this show's finale, but he has an interesting relationship with the main character and feels like a separate person from All for One, and ends up being better than All for One. Jesus Christ. Why did All for One suck so much? Number 6 gets a B. Overhaul. The exact inverse of One for All. Overhaul is a genuinely interesting villain whose actions are downright disturbing, especially when the show's target audience is those of the teen or older child variety. His motivations are cool, his powers are cool, and his eventual pseudo-reformation was well done. So why isn't he gonna be higher than, like, B tier? Oh yeah, he looks like steampunk Elton John, but bad. I'm sorry, but wearing only the beak part of a plague doctor's mask is an absurdly atrocious aesthetic choice. It really is a pity, because he probably could have gotten into A tier if only he didn't look like the first draft of him's design got no corrections. While most characters in high-profile manga leave me in awe of their art, this left me in an entirely different sort of awe. It was genuinely such a bad design, I don't think anyone could make it worse. Every single color is clashing. He feels like a gestalt entity of a clown's wardrobe, but all the colors were chose to clash as much as possible. Actually, he looks so bad, I'm putting him an A, next to the Deep Sea King, in just absolute atrocious designs. This is truly a work of art, in the same way a public restroom in the back of a gas station is a work of art. You are in silent awe of the incredible failure on display, and much like the public bathroom, you know you will never see something quite like it ever again. He ends up in A. Gigantomachia. It's sad how all for One's underlings are better than him. Not only does Gigantomachia have a cool name, he also has an extremely interesting story. This makes me feel more and more let down by All for One. How does the main villain of a series fall so short and fall so fast and so far? Gigantomachia gets a B. Scaramouche. Upon looking up his name, I learned 2 interesting facts. One fact furthered my appreciation for him, that being that his name comes from a character that appeared in old Italian plays. The second fact made me appreciate him more, but for a different reason. Apparently, everyone's favorite mobile game company, Hoyoverse, decided that they should name a character in Genshin Impact after Scaramouche, 5 years after Samurai Jack came out. I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. This was a whole lot of preamble for one of the most unintentionally amazing villains in this entire list. Pied Piper of Hamlet robot assassin who likes to scat and sings random lines of his script should not be one of the best villains on this list, but he ends up feeling like someone heard my complaints about Bill Cipher and fixed them. A great comedic villain who is equal parts funny and threatening, while also striking the perfect balance of screen time, being used sparingly enough for us not to get tired of him, but also being used just enough for us to feel satisfied. Zuko. Is it sad that I only remembered him as I was going back rereading my script? Yes, it is. Zuko is my favorite character in the Avatar comics. That said, he never feels like a remotely competent villain when he is a villain. So C. Scaramouche gets an A. Scar. I can't rank Scar higher, despite how much I love him. He suffers from a similar problem as Zuko. He is a bit underwhelming as a villain, but ends up as one of my favorite characters when he redeems himself. But he's still better than Zuko, so I guess he gets a B tier. The Nowhere King. It makes me vitriolically upset that the Nowhere King is in Centaur World. I don't even think vitriolically is a word, but it's here now. The gall of putting one of the best designed, most well-written, and downright tragic characters in a show like Centaur World is so maddening. I will not go into depth here because he deserves his own deep dive. Suffice it to say, I almost thought about putting him in S+ tier next to Andreas, but he doesn't quite reach that level. But he's definitely going at the top of S tier. Kokushibo. I was gonna rank the number demons as a collective, but then I realized the D and F tiers felt kind of barren. So now I'm going to rag on them. Kokushibo looks like Rolk, so that's 1 point in his favor. Also, looking at any of his pairs of eyes by themselves makes him look so dumb. He also has Midra's, I don't know why I pronounced that with an accent, Midra's spear from Elden Ring. But he's held back by the hallmark of Demon Slayer demons. They made him sympathetic and failed. Kokushibo gets a C. Doma. What If I Spin Sucked was the bold narrative choice that led to Doma, and will hopefully never be replicated. Actually, no. Doma has 3 things that keep him from C tier or lower. First, he's the only demon to not try to gaslight me into feeling sorry for him. He's an evil person from the start. Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Second, he actually has personal connections to some of the main characters. Crazy. Third, he is his aesthetic. He dies in a cool way, so that's aesthetically pleasing, and actually had a look that wasn't laughably bad or horribly forgettable. Doma gets put in B tier. Akaza. What if Poliwrath was a person and was evil, was the bold narrative choice that gave us Akaza? Hands down, one of the most mundane design out of all the demons. Check that, he's the most mundane of all the demons in general. When I was looking at his picture on the wiki, I momentarily gaslit myself into thinking he had 4 arms, or at least had a form with 4 arms, because he was so uninteresting. There was just no way that he didn't, but no, he's just boring. Akaza gets a D tier. Nakime. I'm sorry, I butchered that name probably. A cool and mysterious demon who plays a biwa. Her hair obscures her face. She looks like Sadako, or a traditional Japanese Anryo. Then she pushes away her hair to reveal... Okay. She is officially dethroned Overhaul as the worst design. A tier. So bad. Good lord, this is atrocious. Okay. Han Tengu. Okay, I really like his design. He looks like a traditional yokai. I can appreciate that. He's still a demon from Demon Slayer, so he kind of sucks. His backstory is the only one that didn't suck that much. It actually makes me feel bad because it's implied that he's put to death after committing crimes, but he is clearly mentally impaired, so it feels sort of wrong. B tier. Actually, he turns out to be the same as the tree dragon demon guy, and that instantly tanks him to F tier because that demon was actually the worst. A hypocritical, preachy asshole who preaches about not preying on the weak while being a lightning summoning entity with tree dragons that he controls. I'm actually really pissed. I was looking forward to slandering that guy, only to realize he's part of a much better demon, therefore tanking this to F tier. Yeah, damn it. Gyoko. Looks like the guy who got his face rearranged by Bill Cipher. He looks annoying, sounds annoying, and just is annoying. F tier. Daki. The only thing keeping her from F tier is the reveal of Gyetaro and the scene where she gets annihilated by Nezuko. If it wasn't for those two qualities, she would easily be the worst upper rank demon. But she's not. So D tier. Enmu. The only unsettling demon. B tier. Kyoga. Functions as a drum. C tier. Ryu. Functions as a cheese wire. C tier. Krang. I haven't finished JJK, and I can already tell this dude is trash. They had built up a very interesting and personal connection, only to reveal that it's just a corpse being puppeted by Krang. God damn it, why do they keep doing this? F tier. Makima. Honestly, this caught me off guard. I was not expecting her to be the main villain of that first part of Chainsaw Man. So B tier. Mahito. I hate his design, and he should have won. An annoying little dude who sucks. F tier. Jogo. I don't believe it. They did it. JJK created a character who was more visually appalling than Overhaul or Nakime or even the Deep Sea King. I loathe everything about this annoying wimp, but I feel as though it would be a disservice to you, the viewer, if I didn't put him with the rest of the crimes against fashion in A tier. Jogo goes in A tier. That's it. I know there are more. I don't care. Feel free to comment on which villains I missed that you think are good or which opinions you think are wrong. But I'm obviously right because I was the one that wrote the script, and Jesus Christ, it was over 14 pages. God damn it. Why do I do this to myself? Please remember to like and subscribe. Please, this took way too long. Please, I beg you.